The silence following the final chord resonated through the concert hall like a reversed thunderclap, carrying with it 20 years of unshed tears and dreams buried under the weight of a single word: impossible. Helen Santos remained motionless before the grand piano, her fingers still hovering over the ivory keys as if they were petals about to touch the surface of a lake. The simple black dress she'd borrowed from her neighbor contrasted sharply with the golden elegance of the auditorium, but none of that mattered now. Every breath in the audience seemed suspended, each heartbeat synchronized with the ghostly echo of the melody that had just sprung from her hands. The morning had begun brutally, as all mornings had for the past few months. Helen woke at 5:30 a.m., not to an alarm clock, which hadn't worked in ages, but to the deafening roar of garbage trucks on Flower Street, where she lived in a cramped 40-square-meter apartment with her 16-year-old daughter, Beatrice. The smell of cheap coffee mingled with the aroma of day-old bread she resold at Mr. Joe's Bakery, a job that barely covered her overdue rent and the bills that piled up like autumn leaves. As she mechanically prepared breakfast, Helen watched Beatrice study at her makeshift desk, a wooden plank balanced on rusty sawhorses. The girl had her mother's brown eyes, but carried a light Helen had lost long ago. Beatrice dreamed of being a doctor, speaking of it with a passion that made Helen's heart contract with both pain and hope. "Mom, did you know the conservatory is offering a full scholarship?" Beatrice commented without looking up from her books. "It's for people who demonstrate exceptional talent, regardless of their financial situation." Helen nearly dropped her mug. The conservatory! That place had been the gravitational center of her life for 15 years, from age 5 to 20, when everything fell apart. She pretended not to hear, but her daughter's words echoed in her mind like dissonant chords refusing resolution. "You should apply, Mom. I know you still play." "I don't play anymore, Bea. I've told you that." "But I hear you at night, when you think I'm asleep." Helen turned quickly, her face flushed. It was true. In the sleepless nights, when the world seemed to crumble around her, she would sit on the living room floor and finger imaginary melodies on the wooden table, her fingers dancing in the air as if touching invisible keys. She hadn't known Beatrice was listening. "It's just memories." "Memories make music, Mom. Real music." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Martha, the neighbor from the apartment next door, who knocked on the door with her usual urgency. Helen opened it, expecting another complaint about noise, though they hadn't made any, but found a different expression on the woman's face. "Helen, dear, you need to go to the conservatory today. They're holding a special selection for their social inclusion program, Last Chance." "I can't." "Listen, I saw you playing at the church's summer festival 2 years ago. Don't pretend you don't know what you're capable of." Mrs. Martha held Helen's trembling hands. "Your daughter needs a chance at a better life, and so do you." "Full name?" "Helen Santos." The secretary paused, furrowed her brow. "Santos, that name sounds familiar." "I studied here, a long time ago." "Oh." The recognition was followed by a moment of awkwardness. "You need to fill out this form. The audition is tonight at 7. Helen took the paper with trembling hands. The form had a section on recent musical experience, which she left blank. How could she explain that her musical experience for the past 20 years consisted of playing Happy Birthday at neighbors' parties and humming imaginary melodies at her kitchen table? At 7 o'clock, she found herself in line with other applicants. Most were young, clearly from affluent families, carrying expensive instrument cases and chatting about private tutors and masterclasses. Helen felt like an intruder, a 40-year-old woman in simple clothes amidst musical prodigies. Next, Helen Santos. Her name echoed down the hallway, and her legs felt weak. She walked to the auditorium where it had all begun and ended. The same grand piano stood center stage, bathed in a golden spotlight that made the keys gleam like the teeth of a cruel smile. On the panel, she immediately recognized Maestro Castellani. He had aged, his hair now completely white, but his eyes retained the same severity that had crushed her 2 decades before. Beside him, 3 other professors observed her with neutral expressions. Helen Santos, Castellani said, consulting a clipboard. I see here that you were once our student. Yes, sir. And what have you done with music since then? The question was posed in a tone that suggested he already knew the answer. Helen felt her face flush. I stopped playing professionally. I see. And why do you decide to return now? Helen looked at the piano, then at the panel. She could feel the weight of the silence, the expectation of an answer she didn't know how to give. Finally, she murmured, For my daughter. Your daughter plays piano? No, sir. She wants to be a doctor. But I need to show her that you shouldn't give up on your dreams. Castellani exchanged a look with the other judges. Very well. You may play whatever you wish. You have 10 minutes. Helen walked to the piano with steps that seemed to float. She sat on the bench, adjusted the height, everything exactly as she remembered. Her hands hovered over the keys, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she was going to freeze again, that history would repeat itself. But then something extraordinary happened. She didn't think of Rachmaninoff, nor Chopin, nor any of the pieces she had obsessively studied in her youth. Instead, she began to play a melody she had never performed before, but knew intimately. The lullaby she sang to Beatrice as a baby, transformed into a complex and emotional composition. The notes flowed from her hands like water finding its way to the sea. She wasn't playing for the panel, nor to prove anything to herself. She was playing for all the sleepless nights, for all the unpaid bills, for all the dreams she had buried, for every time she had seen her daughter studying under the light of an old lamp and felt her heart break. The music grew, expanded, filled every corner of the auditorium. Helen closed her eyes and allowed herself to feel every note, every pause, every breath of the melody. Her hands moved with a precision that surprised her, as if 20 years of silence had only refined her technique, not destroyed it. As the music modulated to a minor key, she saw in her mind all the women like her, working mothers, forgotten dreamers, talents wasted by cruel circumstances.